Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation on renegadepopculture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere. If you can, share out our episodes, and if you want to, consider supporting our Patreon. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talk about the wild world of animation. And now let's just transform and roll out, man. Let's get going.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And this is quite literally the world of animation on today's episode, as we are talking about Moana 2, Ghost Cat Anzu, and Memoir of a Snail. But before we get into the meat of the episode, I do want to acknowledge, since I don't think this came out since the last time we a regular episode, we now have the shortlist for the 97th Academy Awards. These are all of the movies that are eligible for Best Animated Feature. I noticed one pretty significant omission, and that's Mufasa. I know there's always going to be debates of whether or not the live action Lion King movie is actually live action or is animated. It's 100% an animated film. But for some reason, the Academy is like, nah, we're not dealing with that.
It's less the Academy, and I think more that Disney wants it to be taken seriously once again as a major piece of not animation but filmmaking because it's using hyper realistic visual effects despite the fact that the lions this time are way more animated than what they were in the last movie, which it's interesting to say the least that they for some reason did not want to include it on this year's submissions. It's like a weird ongoing case of denial. There are no humans in the Lion King franchise. So, what are you doing trying to say it's not? Like, listen, who knows if this is the case or not. I am wondering if they are trying to get ahead of whatever reception it's going to get and are like, we're going to not put it in animation because then we don't want it to fight against Inside Out 2. Since we'll get to it, I don't think Moana 2 is going to cut the mustard and such in
Mm-mm.
terms of award season hopefuls. And I mean, I don't know. All these big studios are being weird this year, especially Disney with a lot of their decision making and whatnot. There's no way to know what is going on through their heads unless you just ask them or who is actually in charge of the Oscar game for Disney, because like if they're fully ready to put Moana 2 in the short list but not Mufasa, then what are they aiming for Mufasa to get? Because I don't think it's going to win anything unless the Lin Manuel Miranda soundtrack is a banger.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like those songs have to be cream of the crop, or else even best visual effects is pretty competitive this year. So I'm not sure what Disney is hoping to get out of Mufasa, especially when they do have Inside Out 2, which is probably going to be their big awards horse for the year.
Yeah. What, do they think they can't go against Rocket Club Across the Cosmos or Captain Avispa? Come on, man, Disney. It's an animated film. Stop trying to tiptoe around it. And it's weird because the lions are way more animated this time. They have more expressive facial movements, and you can't call it live action. It's it's so weird. I'm hoping for the best for that movie because Barry Jenkins is behind it, but who knows?
Same.
Because right now Disney has way more to worry about due to their animation award chances being really down to Inside Out 2 because shocker of shock, Moana 2 has come out and everyone that was expecting this movie to be bad because it was a chopped up TV series turned into a movie turned out to be bad. Or Mike, what did you think about it? Let's not put a carpet over it all that says that like everyone said it was bad, but what did you think?
I thought, and I will be honest, I was grading this on a curve, knowing that this was originally meant to be an animated series on Disney Plus. And also, you and I both grew up in the glut of Disney direct-to-video sequels. I went in with very tempered expectations, and we will talk about the problems because there are problems. But on the whole, I think I enjoyed this.
I wish I had your positivity on that because I did not like Moana 2. I haven't been this mad at an animated film since last year's Wish. And I've made it known Wish was the movie that was so bad and it made me so mad. I went to see Godzilla minus one right after and felt much happier as a person. So, yeah, let's get the obvious elephant that's in the room out of the room first. This was meant to be that limited series that Disney was making. And then at some point, way too late in production, some higher up said, like, oh, this looks good. Let's make it a movie. Well, everyone who was working on it that got TV level contracts to work on this were like, no, you can't do that. And I guess whoever thought it was a good idea pulled a Katzenberg and said, well, I'll show you. And what we got was a real hot mess of a movie that really shouldn't have been a hot mess. Moana is one of the most successful Disney films of all time. It is absurdly popular. It is still looked so highly upon and more fondly of than probably most other Disney films from the last decade.
Yep.
You would think that if they were going to make a Moana 2, they would start from the ground up, pace it as a movie. But no, instead, what we got was a Disney direct to video movie where they stitched together a bunch of episodes of a failed TV series into one movie. And that wasn't always the case with those specific direct to video films because we did get the Tarzan TV series as well. But it was the most common one of those. I think it out of the 30 or so that came out, two of them were like failed TV series. I think it was the Beauty and the Beast one and the
Atlantis.
Atlantis. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't think it deserved to be graded on a curb. If Disney thought this was good enough to put in theaters, then it needs to be judged as a theatrical movie. No one should have gone in to Norma the North thinking, well, it's a direct to video film that got shoved onto theaters when if you're going to want to be in the same table as the big kids, then you're going to be judged as a big kid at the table. I honestly think Moana 2, it's not the worst animated film of the year,
No, there's still like at least five others below it.
but I will say it is the most embarrassing and most frustrating watch of any major theatrical animated film of the year. I know many would say Kung Fu Panda 4 is that, but at least Kung Fu Panda 4 still had action and comedy and the stuff that you mostly like about that franchise. Moana 2 rings so hollow as a follow up to Moana because, well, it's not a movie or it was not originally meant as a movie. You can't take 3 episodes or so of a TV series and then expect it to work as a movie. There's a reason why movies and TV shows are paced out as they are. They're two different formats of storytelling. The biggest problem with Moana 2 is its story structure. One, like the whole plot revolves around Moana supposedly venturing out to connect with other islanders and such. So did that not happen at the end of the first movie? I thought that's what it was implied, that they were all exploring outward to connect. So it just seems like they gave up halfway and just like, yeah, Moana's got it. She's connected to the ocean and such. Then we have another dangerous deity storm cloud thing that honestly might be the worst Disney villain of the decade so far. At least with Encanto and Raya and the Last Dragon, they have either thematic or story reasons for why they were set up as they were.
Those movies are definitely more thematically rich than this one. I'm trying to find the name of the storm cloud thing because I honestly don't remember much. Oh, Nalo. Nalo is the god who created the storm cloud that like obscured the island, which separated all the different people. And I can see a version of that story working. It's just not very well structured here because the pace is just not there.
Well, there's no time for anything to be built up upon because you're stitching together a bunch of goddamn TV episodes together. For example, let's talk about one of the worst aspects of this movie. It's side characters. These might be the worst, or at the very least, most forgettable side characters Disney has ever produced. And that's saying something because they've been having this issue quite a lot recently where the side characters, something that Disney was usually really good at, leave no impression. I am debating if Wish or Moana 2 has the worst side characters of this decade so far.
That's honestly pretty tough because no, I think they're tied.
Honestly, I would say that maybe Wish has more proactive side characters because Loto, Kaye, and Moni do nothing. They don't go through any kind of story arc. They don't contribute to the story as much. They have very little character outside of an archetype here and there, with Moni being the fanboy, Loto being the like energetic genius, and Kaye being the grumpy old man. But they do nothing in the story. They offer nothing. And listen, Hua Lai Chung, Rose Matafeo, and David Fain are doing their best with their story, like with their performances. They're making them, or at least trying to make them, more interesting as characters. But good acting can only take these three so far when you realize that there's no story arc to them. They're just there to be like to keep the kids distracted from the fact that there's no real villain in this movie. We almost got that with Matangi, voiced by Arihimai Fraser, but she's not really a villain. She's just there. She's not even a roadblock villain because she's not even trying to keep the characters there, except for Maui, but that's because Maui's a giant dick.
Something that is kind of funny is, despite Maui being, I guess, the second lead in the first movie, and to a very lesser extent in this one, he's actually caused a lot more harm in this world than any of the villains.
Matangi just got trapped there because, I mean, did they even give her a reason of why she was stuck in the giant Lovecraftian cosmic horror clam? That only shows, oh, and let's not forget the little Kakamoa coconut that like was seemed like kind of a cool character, but then does nothing. Or honestly, that little coconut probably does more in the story than any of the three side characters do. Because at least that little coconut can shoot a mean dart or throw
That
a
he can.
spear. So what like I shouldn't be this mad at side characters, but Disney is so good at this. Not Disney as a company, but just the creatives at Disney are good at implementing side characters. At least with Strange World, the overall conflict had what was compelling about the different generational gaps between the grandfather, the father, and the son, and just all the different ways that they went through life. And then what they did caused strafe against the family for two different generations. What is the main thematic goal of this movie? What was the main point? Was it to, oh, we got to go out there and connect with more people? Okay. Well, they don't really do that until the very end of the movie, where they just all happen to show up at the end after they raise the island out of the ocean.
I can't remember who said this, but that would have made that storyline work better is if instead of taking a bunch of random side characters from Moana's home village, that she met new people along the way so that we're meeting these people for the first time as opposed to bringing a bunch of like stowaways from the village.
Like, at least Moana and her sister Samaya had a little more chemistry with one another than like her and everyone else. But even like Maui was way more annoying this time around. It's like Dwayne Johnson wanted him to be like the genie. So many of his modern pop culture reference quips
Just fall
were
flat.
yeah, they fall flat. A lot of this movie falls flat. It has a lot of that TV energy where they wouldn't let like a mix of a throw up, vomit, fart joke happen multiple times. It's just grating. Dwayne Johnson, listen, man, I know you used to be good and you were pretty good in the first movie, but you are not good in this movie. These actors are doing their best with just mediocre material here. And the animation looks good, but you expect that from Disney. I would be more shocked if this looked like a TV series. See, because like there's that whole difference between what TV animation looks like and what theatrical film quality animation looks like. And I know a lot of people are probably going to be like, well, what about Arcane? Arcane had like almost $300 million shoved into it.
Arcane is on like a different plane compared to most other things on Netflix or Prime Video. Arcane is Arcane.
Like, even with this film having theatrical quality animation, it was made by the Vancouver studio, which does a lot of their shorts and TV work. Like, why not just keep Moana 2 as Moana the Limited series? It worked out for Baymax, it worked out for Zootopia. I thought those worked out pretty well. And here, it just doesn't, because you're noticing and observing how everything just happens and there's no satisfying arc or conclusion for a lot of the story here. The Kakamoas just kind of vanish like out of the picture after the big cosmic clam encounter. And like, do Kaye, Moni, and Loto actually change as characters? No. No, they really don't. And what was Moana's big story arc?
I don't think she had, yeah, she didn't really have one.
Like, yeah, maybe you can argue that not every film needs a complex story with a substantial ending, but this is what happens when you don't. This is what happens when you take a 6 episode TV series and shove it into a 90-minute movie that either needed to be 2 hours or you needed to just scrap everything and restart from the bottom and then go to the top. Because with what we have here, It's not really a movie, or it's not a movie in the traditional sense. That's maddening. That's frustrating. And also like there are so many callbacks to the original movie, and it's like Disney. I'm going to watch the original movie more times than I will ever watch this again. What are you doing with the dialogue? It reinforces that whole nonsense of Disney and everyone in Hollywood retreading nostalgia now because Moana is almost 10 years old now. I just don't think they know what they're doing. Disney's biggest enemy right now is itself because
Pretty
they are
much.
they don't really have to compete with everyone else except that they do. But instead of saying like, okay, these other studios are taking chances, doing more experimenting with animation and are telling way more compelling stories than we are right now. They are saying, okay, so what we're going to do is nothing. We're going to play it safe because we're Disney and that's usually good enough for most people. And listen, if you go to this and you love this movie, fine. All the more power to you. But there does need to be a time and place to really consider if Disney is giving me mediocre products, why should I give them money? Why should I give them my support? Even though it's like, I don't blame anyone who had to work on this movie, like from the animators to the writers to the multiple people that worked on it. It's not their fault. Some higher up came out and said, hey, we're going to turn all this hard work you put into a TV show and make it a movie with no consideration of how that's going to screw up everything.
They did this and gave them like 9 months, which maybe this could have been more salvageable if they pushed this to 2025 instead of giving them like a much shorter production pipeline.
I think they just should have canned the TV series. If they were struggling to make the TV series, or they just said, hey, let's make it a movie, like at a very early on point during pre production, then we wouldn't have this issue. Hell, if they wanted to make a movie out of it, they could have pushed this to like 2026 or 2027 because animation takes a long time. And what Disney did here was just screw over its Vancouver studio out of money to make a movie that needed more money and to work more for less. Oh, and by the way, this is supposed to be a musical. Where are the bops? There are no bops. Why is Disney hiring people who don't know how to make traditional Disney songs? There's a difference between making pop songs and making grand, epic Disney musical numbers. They're not the same thing. And the fact that the people that they got, I forgot what their names were the
Abigail
most.
Barlow and Emily Bear, who are best known for a Grammy-winning soundtrack for the unofficial Bridgerton musical.
That's not good enough. What was Lin Manuel Miranda too busy with Mufasa to start making music for Moana 2 or whatever the Moana TV series was? It's so maddening. I just don't think this movie deserves getting graded on a curve. I don't think it warrants that. These actors are doing their best. The animators are doing what they can, but there's nothing to it. They finally bring Hey Hey and the pig onto the boat, and they don't do anything. They don't offer anything to the overall plot. Because at the very least, with the first movie, it was just Hey Hey, Moana, and Maui. They had great chemistry and dynamics with one another. There's just nothing here with any of the story structure, character through lines, arcs, the existence of these characters, and just the existence of this movie almost dips into this was pointless. It was pointless to make a Moana 2 if you weren't going to actually make a movie of it because there's no way that this would have worked with what they did. I normally like going to the work in progress and behind the scenes stuff at Animation as Film. I skipped out on Moana 2's work in progress this year. I went to see the Miyazaki documentary about his connection with nature. That was an amazing documentary. I felt more satisfied going to that than thinking, man, I could have a possibility to get a cool Moana 2 poster and to see something that no one else has seen yet. No, I'm not going to do that. Disney has soured its animation for me so much. I'd rather go see a live action documentary at an animation festival than sit down and watch the directors and people who worked hard on this movie or TV show turn movie lie through their teeth and possibly not answer any questions about why didn't y'all fight back or push back the fact that this wasn't meant to be a movie in the first place.
That's kind of funny you mentioned that because I like to watch a lot of interviews for various movies and watching a lot of the press junkets for Moana 2, only like a select few journalists actually asked questions about the fact that this was originally supposed to be a TV series. A lot of the other questions were very softball compared to things that we already kind of know about the behind the scenes.
Well, did they answer any of those questions? Because I feel like they were probably told, do not answer that question.
Some of them were pretty basic, like, yeah, this started off as a TV series, and then they're like, hey, we should put this in theaters. But then we can all kind of read between the lines.
That they weren't allowed to answer that stuff. Like, I'm sorry, but like, it's so interesting, Mike. I'll ask you this. Would you be as generous to this movie if you did not know anything about the original plan for the TV series and then again turn into a movie? Like, would you still be saying, oh, it's okay, I still had a good time, if you knew nothing going into it? Or would you notice that something was up with about half of the things going on in this movie?
I would probably still enjoy it on a surface level, but I guess knowing what this could have been has actually made me like a little less. Although I will say there are some songs that I liked more than others. I think the best one is the not villain song, Get Lost, and Beyond is good. The rest are just kind of forgettable.
I think the only ones I liked are the Get Lost song and then the one song that Maui did.
Can I get a Chihu?
Yeah. And that's really it because it feels like you could see so much of what could have been with this movie if it didn't get turned into a movie. Like these side characters, I'm sorry I keep harping on them. Again, I don't blame the performers, I blame the executive who made these characters completely pointless to the overarching movie. Like you could see maybe what they could do with them. Like Kaye stop being a mopey, grumpy pants and show him like that he's a curmudgeon for a reason or something. Or Loto having low self esteem, which is why she's kind of a manic genius and why she's so hyper when they need to adapt to the situation. Or Moni having either like learning from his idol Maui or having a revelation like, wow, Maui's kind of the worst. Or something like that, because nothing is ever that satisfying. They finally connect everything, and not one person says, hey, maybe we can go get Matangi out of that giant cosmic horror clam. And like, and also, what the hell is with the giant cosmic horror clam? Is that like some kind of folklore thing? Because otherwise, it feels like it should have been in like Strange World.
I was thinking about Strange World a lot with little details like that.
Like that's a problem when and how you know this was made to be a TV series because things are just dropped or never brought up again. Like Matangi could have been a much more interesting character, maybe like a chaotic good character or something like that. But no, I gotta stay stuck in the clam. Sorry. It feels so small scale. It wants to feel giant, but it doesn't work. And they just fumbled the ball with this. And I know it's funny saying that they fumbled the ball with this when this thing's going to make so much money. It's going to make bank because, again, Moana is one of the most highly successful animated films in Disney's current catalog.
Hmm.
People were going to go see this no matter how good or bad this was going to be.
What I'm
And
curious
I,
about is what the drop is going to look like in its second weekend.
I just feel like with the lack of competition, and who knows how many people are going to want to go and see the new Lord of the Rings film or Flow, which, by the way, we might need to talk about those two films next after the adult animation podcast. There's just no other competition outside Mufasa, and who knows how people are going to respond to that, even though and I hate saying this word, the Lion King IP is still very profitable and strong for Disney. Yeah, I am wondering if people are going to be like, well, wait a minute, this movie's actually not as good as I thought it was the first time around. I was just so disappointed. I think I'd rather watch Wish, Frozen 2, and Ralph Breaks the Internet in a row than maybe watch Moana 2 a second time. I think I'd rather watch some of Disney's biggest fumbles than watch Moana 2 again. Let that sink in. Just
Ooh.
and even though I'm saying this, it's like, wow, Cam must really freaking hate this movie. No, it's if I had to rank the 34 films that I've seen this year in terms of animation, it's only at number 27 out of 34. It's not the worst. I put it above Despicable Me for Saving Bikini Bottom and the Garfield movie. It is not Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate bad. It's not worse than the Tiger's Apprentice or Dragon Keeper or the Baki Hanma versus Kengan Ashura special. It still has Disney's and the artists that work there that are constantly getting screwed over. Talented animators. They have great people working there. The performances are solid. It's just the material's not. It has a few bangers, and in some ways, yeah, the ending is all nice and whatever, but this should have been so much more. And Disney is treating it like it's not. And this is what happens when you don't have creatives in charge of the studio and only have Wall Street and Silicon Valley dipshits in charge. Like they're thinking that, oh, Andrew Wilson of like who was the ex CEO of EA should be in charge of this. Like, no.
Mm-mm. Nope.
If you know anything about that, then you know that he would just do everything bad unless he just somehow has a much better track record of movie stuff, which he doesn't. So why not just upgrade Pete Docter or get Walt Disney's daughter to be the head of the company? Like, I don't know. Just oh, we need creators back in the spot of creative industries, man.
The way things are going now, we need to fix things sooner or else there won't be an industry.
It's so funny how this industry is run right now by people who just don't seem to like spending money or love art. They just see a means to an end, and it's quite pathetic and sad. They must live very empty lives. All we could do is just hope for the best, hope for the movies are better in the future. But who knows? It's kind of hard to be excited right now for another Disney animated feature. And even though Pixar is still doing original things, they're still going to do sequels, and it's just frustrating. I don't think Moana 2 has a single chance of making it because I think I mean, I just think the voters aren't going to reward Moana 2 the same way that they will with Inside Out 2.
No.
And I just don't think Inside Out 2 is going to win, but that's a whole other theory that I can talk about at another time. Maybe when we get closer to the awards of like the Annies and such.
For now, I'll just end on this. I said months ago that if Frozen 2 couldn't get a nomination for Best Animated Feature, then Moana 2 has no chance. And now that I've seen that, my thoughts on that have only strengthened.
Just go and find a theater that's playing Flow, or just sit home and watch Memoirs of a Snail, or if it when it hits on demand, Ghost Cat Anzu. There are so many better movies out right now that you should be watching and supporting than a mediocre movie that Disney shoved out because of whatever reason they had for putting it in theaters. So let's finally move on because we actually have two other films to talk about. So let's talk about Unique and Vibrant Ghost Cat Anzu. So this is directed by Nobuhiro Yamashita and Yoko Kuno. And the reason why there are two directors here is because this was a live action rotoscope movie where they shot the live action stuff, which was Nobuhiro Yamashita's side of things. And then Yoko Kuno went through and directed the animation for the film. And I learned this at Animation is Film, where this film took 10 years to make, not to animate, but to get off the ground because people weren't enthused about the concept or the pitch for some reason. When, okay, maybe you'll see why if you did actually see this movie at Animation is Film or during its limited theatrical run. But it's one of the more interesting movies to talk about on a production level. I still very much enjoy this movie. Not that it doesn't have its faults, but it's one of the more charming experiences in animation this year.
At the very least, I can say that it has probably the most unique visual presentation. We're not really getting a lot of modern rotoscope animated films, or at least not the ones that are to this scale. I think it's cool these filmmakers brought that technique back.
Well, it's not like we aren't getting any of them. There are some rotoscope animated films coming out, but the problem is that they're treating it like a filter where they're tracing over every single person and like putting in all of the straggly lines and details that come out when you are tracing over everything. It's like the ugliness of a Ralph Bakshi rotoscope animated film. You see all the little details, and that can either be really cool or really bad, all things considered, depending on how you look at it. Here, with Ghost Cat Anzu, instead of just tracing over everyone like this was a waking life or other smaller rotoscope animated features that have come out during these past few years. So let's talk about Ghost Cat Anzu. It's based off of a comic, and the story is precocious tween Karine finds herself abandoned by her father in rural Japan. Living in a temple with her grandfather, she meets Anzu, a giant ghost cat, and notorious layabout tasked with looking after her. Distrustful of her new guardian, Karine sabotages Anzu's odd jobs for the townsfolk and befriends the eccentric local forest spirits. In an effort to win Karine over, Anzu accidentally makes a deal with the devil, and all hell breaks loose. So here's something to consider walking into this movie. Not that it changes anything, but it might help expand upon some of the story beats of this movie. Karine is not a comic character. She was made specifically for this movie, which, yeah, when you look up what the overall situation of Ghost Cat Anzu is, it's quite interesting that at one point during production, they were like, okay, let's add a human character, not from the comics, to the story. And I can see why they do that because I don't think Anzu is a strong enough character to work on his own.
You need a character who is actually going to go through an arc. Anzu's great. I love Anzu, but he's a pretty flat character, and that's not meant to be a criticism. That's just stating matter of fact. Karin is, well, she's going through a lot.
The whole situation ignites because her dad leaves her at a temple he used to work at to go get money to pay off a loan shark. And this is a year after his wife slash Kareen's mother passes away. It's not a bad story per se. I remember a social media acquaintance described this movie as an anti Totoro, where Totoro helped the main characters grow and progress through the year and were able to help two girls grow stronger emotionally and maturely because of what may or may not happen with a sick mother. Here, it's like everything is reverse Totoro. Anzu is not a wise or whimsical spirit. He's quite a crass character. And instead of the movie being like, yeah, we're going to go to hell and bring your mom back to life, it's more of a movie that's about dealing with the frustrations of life and the people that you are supposed to trust letting you down and you having to take the steps to become stronger emotionally, maturely, and however else. Because in a comedic way, this movie does everything. Like at the end, when they finally bring her mom back from hell and get chased by the Oni and the Lord of Hell himself. And it's like, oh no, they're trapped. And then all the spirit friends come by. And it's like, you think it's going to be this great, heroic, climactic battle where they beat the devil and the Oni back to hell.
Nope.
And to be fair, it is very funny how that happens, where they are completely useless characters, despite their charming designs and personalities. And I think Ben Diskin plays the frog.
That's great casting.
Yeah, he's great. Like they don't stop the Oni or the devil. He brings back her mom back to hell because you can't just do that in life. You can't just go to hell and bring back your dead mom. In a weird roundabout way, it's a very poetic story of Karin going through the struggle of letting go and learning to grow, because the story does introduce little bits and pieces of what her life is like, whether it's at school or with her father or with anyone else, including the two boys from the convenience store or with the other spirits. There's a lot going on in this movie, but it's kind of hard to see that when a lot of the first half is reminiscent of showing off what like a summertime for a child would be. Like summertime in a small town that's a little quirky, no musical numbers or a grand orchestra is doing a theme song for your life. It's quiet ambiance. You just let the cicadas sing. You let the lush summer sunshine shine on everything. It's trying to capture that Ghibli low key wonder, but it's also trying to make fun of that aspect.
It definitely feels like it's kind of taking the piss out of what Ghibli does best.
Like it's funny, like how Anzu goes to the pachinko parlor and he's about to use the money they got from a summer job. And he's like, no, this is Kyrene's money. I can't use this. And then he just like, well, I'm going to use it. I just have to make more. Like, I do think this film is funnier than people lead on. Though I understand if sometimes its mean spirited nature can sometimes lean a little too much on the mean side with no real repercussion to the actions and such. It's supposed to be a story of Kieran growing up, but it didn't quite hit those story beats as well as they could have.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with that. In fact, I even found carrying a little bit grating in the first half. It's really not until I can't even believe how they go through the portal to the land of the dead. It's just an example of they're really going there.
It's interesting, especially like some of my favorite segments are when they're dealing with like the god of poverty. It's a fun movie to watch if you can tolerate Kirin as the lead character, which yeah, she's a little annoying and so is Anzu. And it's the point, but there could have been like maybe a few more moments of them bonding or growing close and such. It's like I don't fully believe the hug that they have at the end.
One more scene of them like actually forming some sort of connection would have made that hug hit a little bit harder.
Because there is a moment where that's supposed to be the case where Anzu finds Kyrene in that little hot spring that the frog guards, and they have a conflict of like an argument, and it's like, listen, I'll watch over you, but you gotta get your nonsense together. Or just like one more scene of her crying about the loss of her mom and Anzu comforting her or something like that. It's just something a little more than what we got. Because I do like the scene at the end where the Lord of the Underworld isn't even that terrible of a person. He just seems strict. He's like, listen, you can't be up here, mom. You have to come back down here. And it's not like he was ever going to hurt the little girl or anything like that.
No, he's just following the rules.
Like that he put down himself. It's like such a zany approach to a Ghibli style experience. And I do love it. I hope that when this gets released on Blu-ray, they have a whole extra feature of where you can watch this movie with just the live action aspect,
I would actually love to see that.
because they've shown little bits and pieces of the animation and how it compares to the live action footage. And it's really cool to watch because instead of just going the route of trace over everyone to look realistic and whatever, they instead go the route of doing more cartoony designs that have a bit more human like weight to them in their movements. But it's a lot of fun to see how they translate that to animation and what have you. I think its animation is the highlight, especially during that car chase sequence.
The car chase is like definitely my favorite scene of the movie because you really get to see the creativity in all the different Oni design and just like the animation of the chase itself.
It's also probably the one scene in the movie where Anzu and Kyrene are like on the same page. Like, no worries, I'll travel to the ends of the earth to avoid him so you can keep your mom. Like, even at the end, when the dad comes back, I love that scene when they're in hell where he pops in and out of the chandelier. How it's like, oh, he's almost dead. And then he gets pulled back up. Oh, somebody saved him. And then he comes back down. It's like, no, he's stuck with the loan sharks. I mean, they don't really answer how that solved itself because he's literally out of the movie after that first like 5 or 10 minutes. And then she's about to leave on a train with him. And she's like, no, I have to stay here. I have to grow up and become a better person. And it's a sweet ending. Doesn't quite land as strongly as it could have. But you know what? I like this movie. It at least offers a delightfully distinct experience that you don't get a lot with US animation. It's one of the reasons why animation from around the world is so cool because you can do stuff like this that America is really not willing to do.
You can experiment with form, with several different art styles. You can be a lot more experimental in ways that in American animation it you don't really have as many freedoms.
No, and that's because America is too worried about the bottom dollar of it all. It's just worrying if they're going to make a profit or not, which no. You just have to let it be sometimes that you're not going to make all the money in the world. Sometimes you're just going to not make all the money in the world. I love movies like this and our final film for tonight, Memoir of a Snail. So to wrap it all up, while the story could be stronger in Ghost Cat Anzu, it is still a very quirky through the world of animation that I'd highly recommend watching if you can still somehow find it in a theater or wait for it to show up on demand and hopefully on Blu-ray.
I echo a lot of that. Whenever you get a chance to see this, whether it is in theaters or on demand, it is definitely worth the look.
Let's get down to actually the what could be the we'll talk about this maybe at near the end, but potential Oscar frontrunner for Best Animated Feature, Adam Elliott's Memoir of a Snail, which is his most recent feature length movie after Mary and Max from 2009. And golly, that's such a almost 2 decades. And he says it takes about like 10 to 15 years for him to make his movies, which is sad that he has to go through the indie route and raise funds and all that stuff to do it when it's like, man, have you seen his movies? They're amazing. But on the other hand, it's also what makes them completely special and unique because there's not a stop motion film like Mary and Max. And with a film like Memoir of a Snail, there's no film that's quite like it out there right now in stop motion.
This movie is incredible. I knew I was going to like it just based on things that I've heard from back when you saw this that animation is film to just other critic friends of mine who've seen it. I didn't think this movie was going to stomp on my heart and feed it back to me all in the span of like 90 minutes.
So I've seen this movie twice, and not just because of its theatrical release. I could have seen it another time, but I was very busy with the anime podcast to see it again, which it's a shame. I would have loved to have seen it again in theaters. I saw this when it was at Fantastic Fest, and I was like, yeah, that was amazing. I very much loved what I saw there. And when I discovered that it was going to play at Animation as Film, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go see it again. Like, it's that special of a movie. I'd rather go to two festivals to see this movie than more than any other movies this year. And I don't do that often. I don't go out and see movies again like twice or more when they come out every year. It's like a rare special occasion when that happened. So let's talk about Memoir of a Snail. In 1970s Australia, Grace's life is troubled by misfortune and loss. After their mother dies during pregnancy, she and her twin brother, Gilbert, are raised by their paraplegic alcoholic former juggler father, Percy. Despite a life filled with love, tragedy strikes anew when Percy passes away in his sleep. The siblings are forcibly separated and thrust into separate homes. So, Mike, this is your first time checking out Adam Elliott's work.
That is correct. I still have not gotten around to Mary and Max, but now that I've seen Memoir of a Snail, I am definitely going to circle back to his first feature film.
It's such a great catalog of shorts and feature films. I mean, it's only this and Mary and Max, but his movies are so good. And a lot of that is because there's a realistically dour world view, but it is filled with a optimism and beauty that only someone like Adam Elliott could portray. Because like these poor kids go through the ringer. Their mom dies after giving birth to them. Grace has like a cleft palate that she had to get fixed when she was very young. After their father dies, she gets sent to a separate home away from him, and Gilbert gets sent to a pretty heavily religious, maybe bordering on cult level family of apple orchard people. And Grace just goes through so much in her life. Her new parents are not bad people by any means, but while they think they are doing good by her by being very loving and supportive, it's a very artificial love and support because they just shower her with it's a love that doesn't feel real. It's
Yeah, like a very superficial form of love where they shower her with like affirmations and send her a bunch of self-help books and stuff.
while they themselves are swingers and for a majority of her life abandon her where the more found family aspect of this film comes into play when she meets Pinky, voiced by the great Jackie Weaver, who I saw at Animationist Film, and she just seems so delightful.
Nice.
She learns to slowly like enjoy life, even though being separated from Gilbert and the fact that her new parents are the worst, like really brings her down. And it's interesting to watch this movie and Ghost Cat Anzu like around the same time period of release, like not only in the festival circuit but outside of it, because Memoir of a Snail is like what Ghost Cat Anzu was trying to do with throwing our characters into a like a reality check world where there's not going to be a fairy tale happy ending waiting for you by the end of it. You have to keep moving forward. Or as the tagline of the movie goes, life can only be understood backwards, but we have to live it forwards. Which is such a great line. Like
It
it's
is.
Adam Elliott's scripts are so freaking good because they have both poetic, like philosophical thought. It's also very funny, especially when you go through Pinky's life. It's like, oh, I've been a table dancer. I've done this and that. I apparently banged John Denver in a helicopter, which a dark joke on its own, if you think about it too hard. And I've had two different husbands, one who died by what is slowly becoming a very popular horror movie kill trend with a knife sticking out of the dishwasher.
Oh, yeah.
And then Pinky's second husband, who's voiced by Nick Cave, of all people, dying by getting eaten by a crocodile. It shows like the two diametric opposite situations of what our two siblings are going through, where Pinky helps Grace live a more, like, live a little more. And a lot of interesting things happen to her, like Ken, voiced by Tony Armstrong, comes into Grace's life and marries her only for a dark fetish thing to be revealed about Ken. It's more the manipulation of what he does is the disgusting part than what he's actually into.
She doesn't really see it until she looks at the scrapbook and like and then she has like the light bulb moment of, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
I did love the whole phallic element to Ken's character with his leaf blower, and then she tosses as the leaf blower kind of explodes and falls apart. Then with Gilbert's situation, he is just stuck in what is pretty much a cult, which, Adam Elliott has a very damning look on overly religious people and such, especially with how hypocritical they are and how his life was put through the ringer in a more controlled way, which is very scary with what exactly happens to him, with how his family that adopts him treats him like garbage, just like an employee on the Apple line. And you have to love Jesus and such, or else you're not good and such. When it's like this family's the one that's treating their children like crap. And
I was laughing every time they shows them praying. It's just a whole bunch of gibberish.
that's such a funny moment. That happened. Praise Jesus. Like this movie is darkly funny, and like it's funny in a tragic way, but also in a legit funny way. It's a very dry sense of humor.
It is, but it's such a good encapsulation of what life is like. It's not just life isn't just one tone. For every bit of tragedy, there's also comedy. And I think the way that Adam Elliott balances these different tones is done really well.
Like there are moments where you're going to be like crying, you're going to be shocked with the tragedy of it all, but then you're going to find yourself laughing, like either because it's funny or it's like, oh, it's funny, but it's also a really dark subject matter and such, or like a darkly comedic scene, like when Grace and Gilbert, the first time around, when talks about the dad's sleep issues, and it's like they have to clap for him, and it's like, oh, it's kind of funny, and then it's like, oh no, like with what exactly happens. But this movie does a great job with building a very strong familial bond between Grace, Gilbert, and Percy, their dad. That it's tragic when, spoiler alert, Percy dies pretty much in the first act of the movie. And there's he doesn't really have any dialogue for the most part. It's whatever he has is in French, but you still feel the dynamic and familial strength of Gilbert, Grace, and Percy. And then when he rips that away, it just makes you feel all the more sad. And I will say, this movie does teeter on being a little too depressing.
It does get there at times, but the humor does kind of help soften the blow of those more melancholic moments.
I love the scene at school where Gilbert stands up for Grace. And even though he gets beat up the first time, he just walks up to one of the kids and just breaks his finger, which is such a funny moment. I laughed out loud both times. Just at the sudden, like, oh, so he's going to stand there and take it. No, he just walks up, breaks. I think it's not even like one finger. I think it's two fingers.
Yeah.
And the kids are like, oh, wow, we are out of here. Sorry. Yikes. And he also gets the best dental insurance where he can just shove his tooth back up into his mouth. Boy, I wish I could have that kind of dental insurance. Just not have to worry about it and such. Like when this movie starts becoming a little too depressing is the red herring of Gilbert's possible death, and then the reveal of Ken's fat fetish, and then the more heartbreaking and tragic, because I've had to deal with this on both sides of my family, Pinky's memory loss and Alzheimer's kicking in.
Yeah, that was not very fun to watch because, as I said before, this was the year that I lost both of my grandmothers. So seeing Pinky kind of going through all of the symptoms of Alzheimer's, it's like, oh, that kind of hits a little close to home.
And at the very end, you think like, oh my gosh, is Grace about to kill herself? Because like she feels like she has no family, she has no husband, like she lost her pretty much her mom, and yet it quickly pivots to when she finds the box of money and the letter of Pinky's just thanking her for years of living a great life. And of course, that amazing line, snails never go back over their own trails. Life can only be understood backwards, but we have to live it forwards, which is true. You cannot just focus and let your past shackle you, or as in this film's case, form a shell around you for the rest of
Yeah.
your life. You have to keep moving forward. And that 1-2 punch of her finally getting to make her film and show it at a film festival, and it's just like, even to her own admittance that it wasn't really good. Like again, some of that dark, tragic, dry comedy. And at the very end, when you realize that Gilbert is alive, boy, like as someone who has a twin sister, this movie hits me so hard. Like every time I have walked out of this movie, the two times that I did, I was an emotional wreck because it's a film with a payoff that's fully warranted and worth it.
I said in my letterbox review that this is one of the most uplifting endings that I've seen since Back to the Future Part 3, where Doc Brown gives the whole, your future is unwritten yet, so go make it a good one. That's kind of the vibe I got from Pinky's letter in the box, and then everything that happens afterwards.
Well, and it helps that like some of the actions that she does perform when she was younger help her out in the end, like the magistrate character who, when he met Grace, was a homeless person because of, well, what he was caught doing as a magistrate, which would be more gross that he was masturbating under the magistrate like podium. Grace didn't be like, say like what she thought masturbating was. Just a great little line. And there are just all these little jokes also, like the liquor store is called Tequila Mockingbird.
That was great.
I think it took my audiences a little too long to understand the joke, like the wordplay and such. But when it all kicked in, everyone was laughing, even if it was during a tragic scene and such, of just like what happens with the Gilbert's adopted father does with the money that they get from their church. So,
By the way, are they the only ones going to like that mass? Because you don't see any other characters. It's just the family.
yeah, I think it's just a weird, unprofitable church that they run. It's just, oh, it's so funny how that works. And the stop motion is just great. It's a lot of gray, but there's a beauty to the shades of grays and browns that they use. That even like the more optimistic parts of the story still have a very drab,
It's a very muted color scheme.
but there's still like a beauty to it. It's not just ugly as hell like how a lot of video games were back in the mid 2000s when the Xbox and PlayStation 3 came out, where it was like brown's the name of the game, boys. Everything's going to be gray, brown, and black in the color palette. And it's like, I need something to just throw some pink in there or something, man. Here, the mood of the story and our characters matches the environments around them. It's also funny that the fact that Adam Elliott outright said that the character models don't have legs because it's expensive to animate legs. So,
Understandable.
yeah, I'm not going to be mad at that because the hopping and like kind of bouncy movements that they have just helps with the world that they live in. It makes their designs and movements more appealing than, oh, this is just a creative way to avoid having to anime walk cycles.
The details like that are very deliberate. It's not really the case of cutting corners just for the sake of it.
It's like, man, this movie is just so cool. I love all the little details that you see throughout the movie, of like down to the books that the characters read. And it made me look up what one of those egg roll looking things that they keep eating are called, or like what they are. And I love that it's like, oh, my parents would not approve of me reading all these trashy romance novels. It's like, there's a lot worse you can be reading, Grace, than trashy, pulpy romance novels. And man, this movie is just, it's so freaking good. One of my favorite movies of the year, and one that has rightfully taken a majority of animation awards at film festivals. It was one of the big winners alongside Flow at Animation is Film and Annecy. And unlike 2009, where Marion Max did not make it to the best animated feature noms, which I thought it did at one point, but it didn't. which is a shame because it's an amazing movie. But this might have the chance to beat Inside Out 2 and or compete with The Wild Robot for best animated feature.
If your theory is correct about the precarious state of Inside Out 2 and The Wild Robot, I could see a world where Memoir of a Snail ends up winning Best Animated Feature. It's already starting to win a couple other major awards. Like it won Best Film at the BFI London Film Festival.
Exactly. It has like real competition weight behind it. And even though I like, okay, so for those who don't know, I have a theory about how The Wild Robot and Inside Out 2 may have their chances hurt by behind the scenes production woes, where that whole expose came out about Inside Out 2 and Pixar's working conditions and how a mass majority of the team was laid off before they could get bonuses due to Inside Out 2's success. And a lot of those bonuses were what they needed to survive Disney. And The Wild Robots, whilst, financially ahead and critically acclaimed, and I love this movie. I love both of these movies, don't get me wrong, but they could fall into the same trap Across the Spider-Verse did, where their behind the scenes antics of whether it's DreamWorks laying off their whole animation team to start doing outsourcing for their animation to save money, quote unquote. And, like everything I said about Pixar and how one of the biggest animation studios in the world is not union bound, which is scary as hell to me when it's under a company like Disney. They could have their chances hurt of winning Best Animated Feature. I still think all my money is going to be on The Wild Robot winning because of its acclaim, but I could see something like Memoir of a Snail or Flow getting nominated and winning over it. I think Memoir of a Snail is honestly the biggest competitor next to maybe Wallace and Gromit Avengers Most Foul, just because the Academy loves Aardman.
That's some thinking. Like, until I have reason to believe otherwise, I'm firmly predicting the Wild Robot to win the award, but a strong number two is Memoir of a Snail.
Exactly. And like I said, I love Inside Out 2 and The Wild Robot, but I would not be mad if Memoir of a Snail won. And it rightfully deserves so. I think the one wrong nomination mistake would be giving Moana 2 any time in the spotlight for that. Like there are so many other amazing movies out like this year that are honestly better than Inside Out 2, like Mars Express, The Colors Within, The Imaginary, Chicken for Linda, Sirocco and the Kingdom of the Winds, and Ultraman Rising. And even though we'll have to wait until February before you can see it, The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, is just a laugh riot. And then, of course, there's the acclaim of Look Back. Like, luckily, because sometimes we're like, well, it didn't have its theatrical run, so you're just going to have to wait for it to show up on demand. IFC has already put Memoir of a Snail on demand. So you have no excuse outside of financial reasons to not check out Memoir of a Snail.
Yeah, please go see this movie as soon as you can because it is incredible. Just go see this movie. You definitely need to.
Like, this is the movie that represents animation as film. It is the reason why you can say animation is cinema. So go watch it. Just go watch it. And with that, we are going to be done with this episode. This is probably our last film focused episode of the year, where next time we are going to be talking about the state of adult animation and the weird situation that it's in right now, and just talk about TV animation in general, where we will finally get to talk about Arcane Season 2. Don't worry, we are going to talk about it.
Yes, I have been looking forward to finishing up Arcane season 2. But until next time, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on, well, more so Blue Sky than Twitter, but I am on Twitter still at Cam's Eye View. I also have an Instagram at camseyeview.biz, and I have a website called camseyeview.biz where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I am also going to be a contributor to Media Magpies, where I will be talking about animation and film alongside a bunch of really cool people. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterbox.com/Coach K42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Blue Sky at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.